Mastery of self-control is a subtle yet profound force that distinguishes older men from their younger counterparts, particularly in the realm of relationships and attraction. At its core, self-control is the ability to regulate one's emotions, to act deliberately rather than react impulsively, and to maintain composure even in moments of tension or provocation. For older men, this mastery does not emerge overnight. It is cultivated over years of experience, reflection, and an intimate understanding of human nature, both their own and that of others. They have faced situations where yielding to immediate desires or anger would have cost them respect, dignity, or strategic advantage, and they have learned to pause, observe, and respond with precision. This deliberate pacing in life creates an aura of calm confidence, a presence that does not need constant validation or reassurance. Women often subconsciously recognize this serenity and are naturally drawn to it, sensing a stability and depth that is rare in a world dominated by impulsive reactions and shallow interactions. An older man's self-control manifests in many ways, beginning with his ability to remain composed in emotionally charged situations. When faced with provocation, he does not lash out or escalate the conflict. Instead, he maintains an inner equilibrium, processing the stimulus and responding with a measured tone and appropriate action. This restraint communicates strength without aggression, power without intimidation, and understanding without manipulation. Women are acutely sensitive to these cues, recognizing that a man who is unmoved by petty challenges or emotional turbulence possesses an inner fortitude that promises safety, reliability, and emotional intelligence. It is this combination of calm dominance and steady presence that fosters admiration and quiet attachment, as women instinctively associate emotional control with maturity, competence, and long-term dependability. Self-control also extends to the management of desires and impulses, both physical and emotional. Older men understand that rushing intimacy, seeking instant gratification, or reacting to every emotional fluctuation can create instability and dependency rather than attraction. Instead, they practice restraint, choosing the timing and manner of their engagement carefully. This does not indicate coldness or detachment, but a strategic awareness that anticipation amplifies desire and measured response reinforces respect. Women attuned to these dynamics often find themselves drawn deeper into the psychological pull created by such restraint. The older man's ability to modulate his attention, affection, and interaction creates a subtle tension that keeps women mentally engaged and emotionally invested. Appreciating the balance between accessibility and enigma beyond immediate interactions, mastery of self-control shapes lifestyle and decision-making in ways that reinforce attraction. Older men tend to prioritize long-term objectives, personal growth, and consistent routines over impulsive indulgences or emotional volatility. This consistency signals reliability and maturity, qualities that women value both consciously and subconsciously. The calm confidence exhibited in everyday life, how he handles work pressures, social dynamics, or unexpected challenges, translates into an unspoken promise of stability and competence. Women notice the difference between a man who is reactive, unpredictable, and needy, and one who navigates life with thoughtful deliberation, emotional regulation, and measured presence. Self-control also allows older men to observe and understand women's behavior without judgment or overreaction. By remaining detached yet attentive, they gain insights into desires, triggers, and emotional patterns without succumbing to insecurity or possessiveness. This observational skill strengthens their ability to respond effectively, anticipate needs, and guide interactions subtly, creating a dynamic in which women feel seen, understood, and yet perpetually intrigued. The combination of patient strategic restraint and perceptive observation becomes a magnetic force, drawing women toward a man whose mastery over himself suggests a mastery over the relational dance as well. In essence, self-control is more than discipline. It is a reflection of emotional intelligence, strategic awareness, and life experience. The older man's ability to regulate his responses, manage his desires, and maintain calm authority creates an aura that communicates value far beyond words or superficial charm. Women are not merely attracted to the appearance of self-control, they are drawn to the sense of security, competence, and mystery it conveys, sensing that such a man offers stability, wisdom, and an understated power that promises depth, consistency, and a rare form of emotional connection. The power of strategic silence is a tool wielded with precision, a skill that older men often use to command attention, evoke curiosity, and establish authority without uttering a single word. Unlike aimless quietness or awkward pauses, strategic silence is intentional, purposeful, and calibrated to the moment, creating an invisible yet palpable tension that draws others in and amplifies the impact of every subsequent word. It is a demonstration of restraint, a subtle declaration that not everything needs to be said immediately, and that the space between words can carry as much meaning as the words themselves. This practice relies on understanding timing, context, and human psychology, as silence, when deployed correctly, can communicate confidence, dominance, and a deep sense of self-assurance that is inherently attractive. Women, consciously or unconsciously, respond to this measured restraint because it signals control over impulses, thoughtfulness, and a rare kind of presence that cannot be replicated by superficial charm or constant chatter. At the heart of strategic silence is the principle that absence creates value. In a culture where many feel compelled to fill every gap with words, the deliberate withholding of speech creates space for reflection, curiosity, and desire. When an older man remains silent at the right moment, he allows his presence alone to convey authority, attentiveness, and significance. Women notice this absence of unnecessary dialogue, sensing that the man is unhurried, discerning, and confident enough not to validate himself through constant conversation. Every word that finally emerges from his lips is therefore magnified, laden with intention, and carefully framed to achieve the desired emotional or psychological impact. The effect is subtle but profound. Rather than competing for attention with verbosity, he commands it effortlessly, drawing focus to his speech and actions by virtue of the contrast created by silence. Strategic silence also functions as a mirror, reflecting and amplifying the emotional state of those around him. By not immediately responding to emotional triggers, questions, or provocations, older men encourage others to project, speculate, and reveal more than they would if met with instant commentary. This creates a psychological pull, as women, like anyone, are naturally curious beings who are inclined to fill the void left by intentional quiet. The silence becomes a canvas on which they imagine possibilities, interpret intentions, and construct narratives that often enhance attraction. Each pause, each moment of withheld reaction, serves as a subtle invitation to observe, anticipate, and engage, transforming ordinary interactions into exercises in intrigue and emotional investment. Another dimension of strategic silence lies in its ability to regulate power dynamics without overt aggression. By controlling the flow of conversation, older men subtly assert dominance and authority, signaling that they are not beholden to external validation or compelled to prove themselves in every exchange. Women, particularly those sensitive to confidence and self-possession, recognize the distinction between silence born of insecurity and silence born of mastery. The latter conveys an inner equilibrium, the ability to remain centered amidst chaos, and a rare form of psychological strength that draws admiration and, over time, emotional attachment. It is this careful calibration of verbal and nonverbal cues that creates an irresistible aura of presence, one in which words are precious, deliberate, and impactful. Silence also amplifies contrast, a key principle in attraction. By interspersing thoughtful words with calculated pauses, older men create a rhythm that heightens attention and engagement. Women are naturally attuned to patterns of interaction, and the interplay between expression and quiet creates a compelling cadence that makes the speaker's contributions memorable and emotionally resonant. Strategic silence is thus not emptiness but a dynamic force, a tool to shape perception, influence emotions, and establish a subtle but undeniable control over the narrative of interaction. It fosters anticipation, deepens intrigue, and reinforces the impression that the man is governed by deliberate thought rather than impulsive reaction. Ultimately, the power of strategic silence lies in its ability to elevate presence, convey authority, and cultivate emotional tension. Every pause, every moment of withheld response becomes a statement in itself, a demonstration of self-mastery and psychological insight. Women are drawn to this combination of mystery, restraint, and perceptive observation, sensing that behind the quiet exists a mind that is deliberate, confident, and attuned to the subtleties of human behavior, a presence whose words are rare, meaningful, and impossible to ignore. Consistency in behavior is a cornerstone of attraction that older men often understand intuitively, a principle rooted not in monotony, but in reliability, predictability, and quiet authority. Consistent behavior conveys a sense of stability and trustworthiness, signaling that a man is governed by principle rather than whim, and that his actions are deliberate rather than reactive. Women, whether consciously or subconsciously, are drawn to this steadiness because it provides a psychological anchor in a world full of uncertainty and emotional volatility. Predictable yet unwavering behavior does not imply rigidity or lack of excitement. Rather, it represents a measured approach to life, relationships, and interaction, creating an environment where emotional safety exists alongside subtle intrigue. It is in this balance that attraction deepens, as women feel secure in the presence of a man whose character is reliable, while remaining mentally engaged due to the careful nuances embedded within his consistent patterns. At the most fundamental level, consistency communicates integrity. An older man who behaves reliably demonstrates that his words align with his actions, that his commitments are honored, and that his principles are not negotiable under pressure. This alignment between word and deed establishes credibility, creating trust without needing verbal assurances. Women attuned to these cues sense that they are dealing with someone whose character is authentic and dependable, a rarity in fleeting social dynamics dominated by uncertainty and impulsive choices. This reliability fosters emotional attachment because it signals that the man can be counted on, not only in ordinary circumstances but in moments of challenge or stress, providing a sense of stability that is deeply reassuring and subtly addictive. Consistency also operates at the level of interaction and emotional presence. Older men who are consistent in their demeanor, tone, and engagement do not oscillate between extremes of intensity or affection. They do not overact to minor slights, withdraw unpredictably, or indulge in sporadic displays of neediness. Instead, they maintain a steady presence that allows women to predict and anticipate responses, creating a foundation of trust and emotional comfort. Yet, within this stability, There is room for intrigue. The consistent man is deliberate about when he offers attention, support, or validation, which amplifies the impact of each interaction. Women experience a subtle push and pull, confidence in his reliability combined with the allure of his measured engagement that deepens their emotional investment over time. Behavioral consistency extends beyond emotional regulation into lifestyle, decision-making, and priorities. Older men often exhibit disciplined routines, respect for commitments, and thoughtful planning in daily life. This predictability signals responsibility, competence, and long-term thinking, qualities that women naturally associate with security and maturity. Even small patterns, punctuality, follow-through on promises, attentiveness to details, accumulate into an overarching impression of stability. Women perceive this as a man who is grounded, in control, and capable of providing continuity in a relationship, creating a psychological dependency that is not forced, but naturally reinforced by the man's unwavering character. Consistency also fosters respect, which is distinct from fleeting attraction. When a man's behavior remains steady, it communicates that he is guided by principle rather than emotional fluctuation, creating admiration for his restraint, foresight, and reliability. Women often feel that they can lean into such a man without fear of being met with volatility or unpredictability, which strengthens emotional connection and encourages investment in the relationship. This dependable nature does not eliminate mystery or interest. Instead, it frames curiosity within a stable context, enhancing engagement rather than undermining it. Ultimately, consistency in behavior functions as both a stabilizing force and a magnet. It reassures, attracts, and deepens emotional bonds, creating an invisible framework in which women feel secure while remaining mentally and emotionally engaged. Predictable yet unwavering action signals strength, reliability, and maturity, establishing a subtle psychological influence that fosters attachment and admiration. Women respond to this equilibrium instinctively, drawn to the quiet authority and dependable presence that only a man who masters consistency can project. Recognizing the rare combination of safety, competence, and understated allure that defines a life lived with deliberate steadiness, emotional detachment, with empathy is a delicate yet powerful skill that older men often master, creating interactions that are magnetic, compelling, and subtly addictive. It is not about coldness or indifference, but about maintaining clarity and self-possession while still offering genuine understanding and care. This balance allows a man to engage with a woman without becoming enmeshed in reactive emotions, neediness, or dependency, which are often the subtle killers of attraction. By remaining emotionally present but not emotionally consumed, older men cultivate a presence that is both reassuring and intriguing, demonstrating that they are capable of connection without surrendering control, creating a dynamic where women feel seen, understood, and quietly drawn to their composure. At the core of this technique is the ability to separate one's own emotional state from that of the other person. Older men who practice emotional detachment with empathy recognize that responding impulsively to every emotional fluctuation can lead to instability, conflict, and erosion of authority. Instead, they maintain an internal equilibrium, observing, listening, and responding with measured thought. This does not mean ignoring or dismissing emotions, rather it involves processing them without allowing them to dictate behavior. Women intuitively sensitive to emotional cues perceive this calm and measured presence as strength, security, and maturity. They sense that their emotional expressions are acknowledged and validated without overwhelming or compromising the man's composure, which fosters a sense of comfort and attraction. Simultaneously, empathy, when paired with detachment, becomes a tool for connection that is far more effective than impulsive emotional indulgence. Older men demonstrate understanding through active listening, attentive observation, and thoughtful responses that indicate they are attuned to the woman's experience. They do not overreact, overcommit, or overshare, but they communicate care through subtle gestures, nuanced language, and perceptive insight. This approach creates a powerful emotional resonance because it shows that the man values and respects the woman's feelings without being dependent on them for validation or self-worth. Women respond to this equilibrium instinctively, feeling emotionally nourished and mentally engaged without sensing pressure, neediness, or volatility. Emotional detachment with empathy also enhances the sense of intrigue and allure. By not reacting predictably to every emotional stimulus, older men introduce a degree of unpredictability that keeps women mentally invested. They provide attention and affirmation strategically, creating a rhythm that encourages anticipation and reflection. Women experience a subtle pull, recognizing that while their emotions are understood and acknowledged, they do not fully dictate the interaction, which heightens curiosity and deepens attachment. This balance between accessibility and restraint transforms ordinary exchanges into compelling psychological dynamics, where care is offered without compromising authority or self-mastery. Moreover, this skill reinforces respect and admiration. Women tend to value men who can maintain composure under pressure, who listen and respond thoughtfully, and who demonstrate understanding without succumbing to emotional manipulation or neediness. Emotional detachment with empathy signals that the man is in command of his own life, choices, and responses, and that he is capable of sustaining meaningful connection without losing himself. This creates a subtle psychological magnetism. as women are naturally drawn to individuals who embody both strength and sensitivity, authority and compassion, clarity and emotional intelligence. Ultimately, emotional detachment with empathy is a disciplined yet natural approach to interaction that combines care, understanding, and emotional regulation. It allows older men to engage deeply without overinvesting, to show interest without dependence, and to maintain a presence that is both grounding and intriguing. Women respond instinctively to this blend of emotional awareness and self-possession, experiencing a sense of connection that is nurturing yet compelling, stable yet full of subtle tension, a dynamic that fosters attachment, admiration, and quiet psychological influence. Subtle demonstrations of value are a hallmark of older men who understand that true attraction is cultivated through action rather than proclamation. Unlike younger men who often rely on verbal boasts, flashy displays, or overt attempts to impress, older men communicate their worth quietly, consistently, and strategically. They recognize that admiration arises naturally when competence, strength, and capability are revealed through behavior rather than speech, creating an aura of effortless authority that draws women in without the need for overt persuasion. By showing rather than telling, they establish credibility, inspire respect, and generate intrigue, allowing others to witness value in a manner that feels authentic and uncontrived, a magnetic combination that commands attention while remaining understated. At the core of subtle demonstration is the principle that actions carry far more weight than words. An older man might excel in his professional life, manage personal challenges with grace, or exhibit mastery over skills and hobbies that reflect dedication and discipline. These achievements are not broadcasted loudly or used as tools for self-aggrandizement. Instead, they naturally surface in context, becoming evident to those who observe him closely. Women notice these subtleties. The way he handles difficult situations with calm decisiveness, the quiet confidence with which he navigates social interactions, the consistency in delivering on commitments. Each action communicates value without a single boastful statement, creating a sense of admiration that feels earned and genuine rather than superficial or forced. Another facet of subtle demonstration is the ability to provide support and guidance without overstepping or dominating. Older men often assist, advise, or contribute in ways that are visible but not intrusive, revealing competence through thoughtful intervention rather than overt control. Whether helping solve a problem, offering insight, or managing situations with skill, these actions convey capability while maintaining respect for the autonomy of others. Women perceive this as a sign of reliability, intelligence, and strength, fostering trust and appreciation without triggering defensiveness or resistance. The understated nature of these gestures enhances their impact, as each act of competence is framed within discretion, amplifying admiration rather than creating dependency or obligation. Subtle demonstrations of value also extend to the way older men carry themselves, communicate, and interact. Body language, tone of voice, and presence can all convey confidence, self-assurance, and capability without explicit statements. A steady gaze, calm posture, deliberate choice of words, or measured approach to conversation can signal competence and authority far more effectively than bragging or constant self-promotion. Women attuned to these nonverbal cues instinctively recognize competence and strength, finding themselves drawn to the quiet power embedded in behavior rather than the empty sound of words. The subtlety lies in restraint. By avoiding overexposure or excessive display, the man ensures that each action retains significance, generating sustained interest and admiration. Additionally, subtle demonstration of value fosters a sense of exclusivity and intrigue. When a man does not feel compelled to constantly prove himself, his accomplishments and strengths carry more weight, appearing as natural extensions of character rather than deliberate attempts at impression management. This creates a dynamic in which women are encouraged to observe, reflect, and internally acknowledge his worth, deepening emotional engagement without the pressure of persuasion. The understated delivery transforms ordinary competence into a magnetic signal, suggesting mastery, resourcefulness, and self-possession in a manner that feels authentic and unforced. Ultimately, subtle demonstrations of value are not about performance or superficiality. They are about embodying capability, intelligence, and confidence in a way that is visible, measurable, and inherently attractive. By prioritizing action over words, older men cultivate respect, admiration, and quiet influence, allowing their value to be recognized naturally. Women respond instinctively to this blend of competence and restraint, drawn to the understated power and consistency that communicates worth without effort, creating a dynamic in which admiration emerges organically from observation, perception, and the subtle signals embedded in deliberate, confident behavior. Controlled mystery is an artful strategy that older men use to cultivate fascination, curiosity, and emotional investment in women. It is not about deception or manipulation, but about understanding that the human mind is naturally drawn to what is partially hidden, to the spaces between revelation and concealment. By deliberately withholding complete disclosure about themselves, older men create an aura of intrigue that keeps women mentally engaged and emotionally hooked, compelling them to explore, interpret, and invest in the unfolding narrative of who the man is. This subtle management of information transforms ordinary interactions into a dynamic psychological dance where curiosity fuels attention and emotional energy, making the connection feel both alive and captivating. At the heart of controlled mystery is the understanding that overexposure diminishes interest. When every thought, feeling, and detail of a man's life is laid bare too quickly, the natural tension that drives attraction dissipates, leaving little for the other person to discover or anticipate. Older men recognize this instinctively and practice restraint in what they reveal, offering glimpses into their character, experiences, and emotions selectively and strategically. Each story shared, each personal insight offered, is carefully calibrated to communicate value, depth, or vulnerability without exhausting the sense of intrigue. Women respond to this by paying closer attention, analyzing subtleties, and mentally filling in the gaps, which deepens their engagement and creates a sense of ongoing discovery that strengthens attraction over time. Controlled mystery also operates on an emotional level. Older men often avoid predictable patterns of emotional availability or constant affirmation, choosing instead to respond thoughtfully and selectively. This does not imply indifference or coldness, but rather a conscious regulation of accessibility that maintains tension and interest. By balancing openness with restraint, they signal that they possess depth, complexity, and inner resources that are not instantly grasped or easily obtained. Women, attuned to these cues, sense that there is more beneath the surface, which stimulates curiosity, anticipation, and emotional investment. The selective sharing of thoughts, feelings, and intentions fosters a dynamic where attention is earned, and each interaction carries a subtle but meaningful weight. Another dimension of controlled mystery is the deliberate pacing of personal revelation. Older men understand that attraction grows when information is revealed incrementally rather than all at once. By dispersing insights into their life, values, and experiences over time, they create a layered impression of depth that encourages continued engagement. Women, naturally inclined to interpret and piece together patterns, become mentally and emotionally involved in the process of understanding the man, which generates a sustained sense of interest and attachment. Each revelation feels significant, a reward for attention and observation, and reinforces the perception that the man is complex, capable, and worth investment. Controlled mystery also enhances perceived value and autonomy. By not being fully transparent or immediately available, older men communicate that they are not dependent on validation or constant attention. This self-possession signals confidence and independence, qualities that women often find compelling and attractive. At the same time, the mystery encourages women to invest emotionally and mentally, as they subconsciously seek to understand and connect with the parts of him that remain hidden. The interplay of accessibility and concealment creates a subtle psychological magnetism, where intrigue and admiration grow hand in hand, reinforcing attachment and interest. Ultimately, controlled mystery is a sophisticated method of fostering curiosity, engagement, and emotional investment without coercion or manipulation. It relies on selective revelation, deliberate pacing, and emotional regulation to create an aura of depth, value, and intrigue. Women respond instinctively to this balance, drawn to the layers of personality, experience, and insight that emerge gradually, sensing that there is always more to uncover, explore, and connect with. By leaving room for discovery and reflection, older men cultivate a dynamic in which attention, desire, and emotional involvement are continuously reinforced, making the connection feel both compelling and enduring